Now, being that high profile leader or that captain of industry that you are, you know the value of time better than most of us. And you also know that your luxury SUV and luxury limousine bring out the right statements, but they really don't let you make the best of the free time that you have while commuting. What you need is a place where you can completely unwind or completely get some work done, which is where an MPV with its added practicality comes in. But is there one that you can get that which matches the sophistication and luxury of these luxury cars? Well, now you have the Lexus LM. Love it or hate it, the LM's audacious front will have people talking. The massive spindle grille is the center of attention here, but its more open look with the segmented hexagonal pattern does soften its presence quite a bit. The rest of the styling seems to be there to be a foil to this, seen in the sharp accents in the lower half and above the grille. The sharp-edged lighting is in keeping with this look. The decidedly cab-forward construction barely leaves the bonnet. This is also when you realize that the LM is enormous, longer than even the full-size LX SUV, and only slightly shorter and narrower. Tempering this is the large glasshouse with its step design and the floating roof effect that ties in with the heavy rake to the windscreen with the large front quarter glass. The bodywork has that chiseled look that you see in new Lexuses, but done discreetly to cover the sheer mass. The 19-inch wheels are reasonably flashy with the intricate details, but are somewhat dwarfed by the mass of the LM. The rear is probably the simplest. It's a flat boot lid to maximize space, but the wrapped effect and layered detailing to the full-width lighting again stops this from being too jarring. The Lexus LM, when launched in India, will come in two seating options, a 4-seater and a 7-seater. Now you know that a great deal of detail has gone into making this a pleasant experience for you when you notice that the button to even open the door is been simplified to make it easier. So you press and hold this for a few seconds and the door just opens. And be no mistake that the 7-seater is a pared back version or something like that. It's still pretty much one of the most luxurious MPVs you've ever seen, or any SUV or car for that matter. So there is usually a side step. This pre-production version doesn't have it, a retractable step. So you climb in like this, and this is how you get into these row of seats. Now they are especially comfortable, and for my frame at least, they're just the right size. If you are slightly wider, then maybe they'll be slightly troublesome in terms of how wide they are, but the cushioning, the bolstering is just very, very neatly done. Now of course there is a very, very long list of gadgets and other touches here that we'll just take you through quickly. Now let's start with the seats. You have a folding cup holder like this over here. Another section here opens up, and by the way, these armrests, they're all heated, and everything that you feel is soft leather, so that's how comfortable it is. It's a small armrest, but it's good for your tab or maybe a small laptop. In fact, Lexus has designed it to work in that sense. And you control most of these functions in the car through this. It looks like a smartphone and it functions as such. So now this screen controls pretty much everything. Your audio functions, you can choose your outputs, you can choose between the front and rear speakers from the Mark Levinson audio system. You can choose your climate controls here, your fan speed, the flow, as well as the seat heating and cooling. Of course, there's a rear climate concierge function as well. You can dim or switch on the lights through here, the reading lights as well as the illumination, in this manner, the ambient lighting. You can adjust the seat from here, the massaging function as well. But here's what's really great. You can also choose these moods. So for example, the dream mood will give you slightly warmer air and dimmed interior lighting, which the 4-seater version also gives you. And when you do that, you can see that the seat and so on starts moving. Now with all the luxury that you already seen this 7-seater model give you in the second row, there's still another row. So this is how it is to use a third row of the Lexus LM. Now getting in is fairly easy. You press this and the seat slides right forward, and then this pushes up the seat back. Yes, it doesn't tumble fold fully, but a lot of MPVs don't anymore. And you have this quite easy step to get in. Remember, the Indian spec version will also get that retractable footboard, which this pre-production model doesn't have. So yeah, getting in is fairly easy, and you step in and you realize that even the third row wouldn't be out of place in, say, a regular MPV or SUV's second row. Yes, you could do with more under-thigh support, as has always been a sort of want in these rows, but what you get with the seat in a middling position, this second row, there's still an immense amount of space, as you can see. The floor is fully flat, the bench is at a fairly high height, so this is still a perfectly comfortable space for you to spend time in. And then of course you have lights here, this compartment, vents, buttons for the blinds here so that you control these blinds, a charging port, more space for knickknacks, bottle holders, and even a reclining function, which you can recline to a pretty useful angle, as you can see. So even in the third row, the Lexus LM is perfectly good for you for as long a journey as you want to do. Now the LM still happens to be an MPV, as luxurious as it may be, but of course boot space is still very important in terms of how practical this MPV will be. And in that sense, this 7-seater model again scores higher. It functions with that ease of use that is being seen as a strong theme in this model. So what you see is you open the boot by pressing this button on the side so that you aren't in the way of the power folding function. Now you have 110 litres with the two seats up, and this can go up to nearly 1200 litres. But it takes a bit of fiddling. I mean, you won't be doing it, it'll probably be your chauffeur, but these seats, they are a bit heavy and slightly cumbersome. You can push these out like this to free up quite a bit of space. Then even if you want, and then if you want even more space, you can bring these up like this. It folds quite easily. It's somewhat like how it used to be in the Innova Crysta, but much more refined and with a sliding function. And then of course you have more space here for your jack and so on, your toolkit and the spare wheel. Now yes, you won't be able to fit tall loads and a big box maybe here because these seats get in the way, but there's still a lot of practicality here. Now if you thought the 7-seater was plush, this is what the 4-seater gives you. There's this massive, absolutely gigantic 48-inch widescreen TV in front of you. And now this is in the single view version. You can have a split view where each passenger can see what they want to see. But otherwise most of the functions are similar to what we've seen in the 7-seater. Of course the trims are a bit different, and you have even more leather here. For example, the armrests are wider still, and you have a deep door bin here with a lot of charging port, HDMI cables, and a cooled storage space in the middle. The window controls are here as well, like in that car. They're on the roof in that, but here because you have a bit more space to play with, they're here in the middle. And here's another nice party trick which will have you and the occupants occupied for quite a while. Press this and that partition blanks out. And then again, these tablets function in more or less the same way. So you have similar functions. You have controls for those various ambient moods. The climate control, again you have a split 2-zone function here. The seat heating, cooling, massaging functions, the rear seat climate concierge, all of that you control through here again. And just like in the 7-seater version, you have these opening roof shades. And of course there's another table here which is slightly larger, and your cup holder is over here as well. Now probably the biggest reason to pick this over the 7-seater version is the fact that you can recline the seat all the way back, and I mean all the way back. This is pretty much a bed on wheels, and first class travel is probably how this feels. So you can lay completely flat like how I am right now. This all black cabin option makes for a cozy sense inside, but you can also choose a brighter beige color. In either versions you have large windows, especially the rear quarter glass. So a sense of the immense space inside the LM with its 3000 mm wheelbase is always present. But, and this is probably a greater luxury than the ambience, is the ease with which you can operate the unending functions of the LM. There are numerous redundancies, so you never find yourself hobbling around to find the right buttons. So why do you choose the four-seater? Surprisingly, it's small differences in comfort that you notice first between the two. The seats themselves are a touch more supportive and maybe a bit wider. You have wider armrests as well. It's done up a bit better with more contrasting materials in the doors and a heavier use of metallic accents. That said, both versions are peppered with 3D printed wood, suede trim on the roof and vegan leather. In either guise, the LM gets a full suite of ADAS tech as well as a useful set of 360-degree cameras. Now we've got a very short spin in the Lexus LM right around the Toyota factory here near Bangalore, and the first thing that you notice, or your chauffeur will notice, is the view out that you have. Now you have a massive expanse of dashboard in front of you. The engine pretty much sits underneath this because of this cab forward design, which is obviously meant for practicality. But what this does is free up this really expansive glass area in front of you. These massive quarter glasses let you actually place this car, which is quite large, easily enough. Yes, you can't see exactly what's in front of you, which can be a bother sometimes, but you do get cameras for that, so that's really not a problem. And then of course you have quite large mirrors which help, again, place your car easily. Of course, with this huge cabin behind you and in the four-seater version, that partition, you might not be able to see all that well behind, which is why there's that driving view camera. You've seen it in many other luxury cars, and that's here too now. It may be all about the passengers with the Lexus LM, but those in the first row won't have much reason to feel shortchanged either. The cabin is done up to the same high standard here too. It's again richly detailed, the dash seemingly perched on a wood plinth. The same textured wood, leather and suede are used here with the addition of open pore walnut wood on the steering wheel. The front seats too have been thoughtfully designed to be more supportive while driving, says Lexus. We found them to be quite comfortable and with a good deal of adjustment, including a powered function for the steering wheel. They have heating and cooling functions too. The interfaces are shared with other Lexus models, so you have a 14-inch central touchscreen that will control most of the functions, including the climate control and drive modes. The India spec car will also get a head-up display as well as a 12.3-inch instrument cluster. It loses the concentric look of earlier Lexuses for a simple but legible set of digital dials and easy access to a host of information. Now this hybrid system, it works like how you would expect these Toyota and Lexus hybrid systems to work. It's quite powerful. There's 247 PS, so the LM won't set the world alight, but it's also just about adequate for the kind of use that you'll put this car through. So again, it just starts off quite calmly in electric power, and it will use it at least in the normal and the eco modes as much as it can. But yes, you get a sport mode which then puts the engine in the forefront, and then specifically for the LM you also have a rear seat mode. Now we haven't been able to sit in the back seat and see how that works, but again, it seems to just soften up the drivetrain, soften up the dampers and so on to make it more comfortable for rear passengers. But what you do notice is the refinement. Now we've known these powertrains to be quite noisy before, but in this case, as you can hear right now, the engine is quite silent. It feels quite far away from you, and there is that drone that we noticed, but it's distant. And considering you won't be going too fast in this car, that CVT effect, that head nod effect that we sometimes don't like, that delay, that, or at least in these really low speed environments, it's pretty well controlled. With the Lexus LM, the focus on comfort runs quite a bit deeper. The MPV is based on the monocoque TNGA K architecture, which it shares with the new Wildfire and other Lexus and Toyota SUVs. But numerous changes have been made specific to this model. The front suspension uses materials and tech to lower unsprung mass and improve ride comfort, while the stability control functions also use the brakes to reduce roll and pitch. Expectedly, there's acoustic glass and masses of sound deadening material, while the engine too has been tuned to be less noisy. Now, in keeping with this car being quite manageable, you also realize that the steering, it feels fairly direct as it can be in a car this large. And The same can be said of the suspension tuning. Now, in terms of ride, we can't tell you much, but at least on these very well paved roads, flat roads, you don't notice any harshness coming through. Yes, there is some, body movements, like some vertical movements, but they aren't uncomfortable. Everything has a very lush, damped feeling to it, which generally goes with the soothing atmosphere that you find in the back seat. Similarly, there is roll, as you can expect from something this large and this boxy. And of course, if you take a corner too quickly, from what we saw, it does tend to run wide a little bit, but in most cases, this is not how you will drive this car, and keep things calm, keep things how this car is supposed to be driven. And again, it just makes for a calming, soothing environment from behind the wheel, with that sense of plushness that you feel from within the cabin. Expect the Lexus LM to be priced upwards of rupees 2 crores when it launches in India later this year. This puts it above other MPVs and right in the ballpark of top-tier luxury SUVs. In that sense, the Lexus LM offers a very different proposition. It may not have the tough image, but there's gravity with its imposing face and size. But if your primary need from your car is for it to be a space that cocoons you and comforts you in between your tight schedule, there are few cars that will match the LM.